It is 10 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order, the County Commissioners mid-month meeting, September the 21st. Let's all rise for the pledge and invocation by Commissioner Evans. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Join us as you will. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to be here, our health, and we just pray that you would guide and direct us through this meeting as we conduct the business for the people of this county. And we pray that, Lord, what we do is pure motives, Lord, and we just pray that you would help us to conduct the business in a way that would be pleasing to you and to satisfy the citizens, most citizens of this county, as best we earnestly can. Lord, we pray that you would go with us. We thank you for blessings. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
We need to amend the agenda today to include the financial report. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion second. All in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0.
Will we be adding it, Mr. Chairman?
In this particular spot you want, Michael?
Whatever you all would like.
Let's put it
What about the county manager comments? Get it there?
do it there. We can do it general business right after the telephone internet at the bottom of that list. Just whichever.
I would ask that you put it at the bottom of general business, if that's okay.
General business. Okay. Motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0. First up is public hearing. River House Drive.
Chairman, do we need on the minute?
Just did that, right? Put on that.
I think Wendy's out in the office, the audience. She could probably lead you into this road.
Okay, I'm sorry. Come on up to the microphone there. Explain this to us, what's happening here.
Good morning.
Morning.
I've had two road name submissions for this meeting. I have a River House Drive. It's located off of Hilltop Road. It's in the Sparta Fire District in the Gap Civil Township. This request has been submitted by Phyllis Miller. And then I have Glory Ridge Place. This has been submitted by Jim and Susan Heckman. We have two or more structures on this drive, and it's located off of Glade Valley Road in the Glade Creek Fire District and Township.
Okay with them?
Yes,
Both of them, I mean.
and the fire chiefs are.
Okay, good then. Anybody have any questions concerning this?
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Make a motion we approve.
A motion here, a
Do we need to
second.
come out of the public hearing before we make the motion?
We'll close the public hearing at this time, and we'll vote on these one at a time. We'll do the River House Drive first.
Mr. Chairman, you might want to just to make sure there's no one in the public with name.
Anybody got any comments on the road name?
Oh, I saw,
Thank you for,
if you would, sir, we don't have a microphone for the public at large.
thank you for hearing our request. And my wife and I moved here from Daytona Beach and bought acreage on Glade Valley Road. And we are putting in various infrastructure to serve the community. This is a non-commercial venture, but our heart is to serve, following the number one commandment, and that is love thy neighbor as thyself. So we have put in a small replica diner called the Chickenette, which in 1965 in Auburndale, Florida, my parents owned, and I was the curb hop at the age of 15. So I have the neon sign and the menu board and some of the signage, and we built a mock Chickenette where we can serve community by invitation. This past Wednesday, we had law enforcement from 3 counties come out and served them. We had and now we're putting in a drive-in theater. Actually, it's a walk-in theater, but it's a drive-in theater for children and their families in the community by invitation. This is non-commercial. We don't accept donations. We don't solicit funds of any kind. And we are continuously expanding it, so we'll have our own little community in there that'll be used for serving the community. So where I'm going with this is I'm uncertain of this road change. If you approve that, are we going to have an actual address of, and that is our hope, that we will have an address to the name. It'll no longer be a Glade Valley address. It'll actually be a Glory Ridge Place address. So that's my question.
Well, that's
Will
good.
be.
Right.
Thank you so very much.
you.
Oh, and by the way, October 24th, we are having a gathering of law enforcement, first responders, and we would like all of you all to come as well. We're going to have it professionally catered with 100 smoked chickens and racks of ribs and homemade slaw and beans, and you all are welcome to come. It'll start at 3 p.m. and go up and through the night, and then that evening we're going to have a double feature movie as well. And the movies will always be Christian themed or child related themed. So it's not going to be, it's going to draw people, and that's going to be our form of ministry. It's not going to be a let's beat them over the head with the Bible and condemn them to hell, damnation ministry. It's going to be come as you are, and eventually we're going to have a covered bridge going across the creek, and we're going to have not a billboard, but a sandwich board up on the road that, because we're right off the parkway, that's going to say bikers eat free today, and give them an opportunity to come in and see what we are about and where our hearts lie. So we want to be part of this community in its fullness. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Anyone else have anything to say in the audience? Let me start there first. Getting none, any further discussion? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion we approve for House Drive.
A motion, here a second.
Second.
Motion and second, any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0. Glory Ridge Place be the next one.
Make a motion we approve Glory Ridge Place.
I will
Anybody?
second that motion if there's no one to speak in the audience.
The motion and second, any further discussion? Back up, we're seeing the motions. To open,
No, you're done.
open up the public hearing for Glory Ridge Place. If anybody has anything to say about that, now would be the time to come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at this time. Ask for a motion.
I restate my motion to approve Glory Ridge
Restate my
Place.
second, sir.
Motion and second, any discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Moving on down, public comment. If any citizen has anything they wish to address. Seeing none, we'll move on down to item B. Presentation to the board and COVID-19 update. Jennifer Green, Appalachian Health.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for having me this morning. And I'm going to go over a few updates. Been a while since I've seen you all, so just want to say all the folks at the health department, we continue to keep the community prayers and our thoughts post-earthquake. I know it's not easy, and I just want to say thanks to all the folks in the community who are working with our community members who we care so much about. Should see every week we publish a weekly situation update that includes an overview of how things are going in Allegheny County related to COVID-19. It is posted on our website, apphealthcare.com. So if any member of the public would like to review it, it's there for your information. As of this morning, we stand at 215 cases, 3 of which are active cases, meaning those are people who are actively in their isolation period, having been newly diagnosed with COVID-19. We have 16 additional people who are actively being monitored, and that means that we have people who are in their quarantine period, they've been exposed, and we are hopeful that they will remain negative throughout their time. But we are continuing to encourage people who have had an exposure to be tested, and including, the broader community. If someone is at higher risk, or if they are someone who develops symptoms, obviously, regardless of your symptoms, if you're at high risk, we recommend you be tested. If you think you might have been exposed, we also think that if you have any symptoms, it's good to be tested as well. One thing I'll just mention: if you notice, there's usually some discrepancy between our dashboard and what's at the state level. That's not intentional. It's just there are some things that take a little bit of time with the data lag between what gets fed in electronically on the state dashboard and what goes onto our website. So we update our website every day by noon with the prior day's cases. So I mentioned 215 this morning. The state says 220. So you'll probably see our dashboard updated later today with some additional cases. In addition, sometimes there are cases assigned to us that actually belong somewhere else, meaning they are residents of another county. And when that happens, we transfer those cases to that home county. And that could mean someone in North Carolina, or it could also mean a place in another state. So I hope that doesn't throw you. The other thing to mention is as we see more rapid testing happening, that will also look a little different. Currently, that's not fully represented on the state website. There is a lot of work being done to represent rapid tests or antigen tests on the state website. But I say that because as we see more of that occur, what can happen is our number gets larger and the state number gets smaller. And it's not intentional to try to suppress numbers or anything like that. It's just because the rapid test has a different clinical definition that we get from CDC. So it's treated the same as a positive case. It's just documented differently. And so it's not so much a factor here in Allegheny County, but over in Watauga, it's a pretty big discrepancy if you look at our numbers. Our numbers are much bigger than what's at the state, and that's why. I think the other thing to mention is that we are continuing to report outbreaks and clusters. Those are, when we have a common plausible link between cases. So you are well aware, we announced an outbreak at the Bottomley Evergreens and Farms. We are continuing to work on that outbreak. I am sad to tell you that it has not stopped completely, but we are hopeful, and we continue to work closely with the Bottomley leadership there to try to get ahead of that, especially given that there's new workers coming in. Our staff are testing at the health department every Monday through Friday. We have capacity that's already prearranged to test 50 people, and we're going to the farm itself to test a couple of times a week early in the morning before they start work. So can't say enough good things about our nurses who have continued to try to make sure that it's easy and accessible. And recently, I was asked to do a webinar with the North Carolina Christmas Tree Association. I know Christmas trees are a big agriculture push for our area, and I just want to tell you, I thought that was a good opportunity. I got to speak with our state epidemiologist about how, really our goal is to try to work together. We know that we're going to hit crunch time before too long. The cool in the air reminds us that we're going to be harvesting trees before too long. So I just want to reiterate, we want to work together with the farm and all farms and try to attack any kind of viral spread early so that people can be at work. Christmas tree growers and agricultural workers have a special exemption through the federal government that's critical infrastructure, which allows for them to continue to work as long as they are not positive and they're not sick. And so I want you all to know that because we believe it's important to protect the public's health, but we also believe it's important to strike a balance in how we address those measures. So that's one of the ways we're trying to work with farms to make sure that we are protecting their workforce and the broader community, but also recognizing the special situation that they're in with a limited time frame to work in the agriculture sector. I guess I'll stop there and just mention one more thing, and that is, I'm sure you all are watching the school announcement that came out last week, and of course, want to say thank you to Mr. Beasley and the team at Allegheny County Schools who continue to stay in touch with us pretty frequently. They do an incredible job of screening and monitoring, and I won't say that we haven't had situations where we've had to quarantine folks, but their actions have helped us stay ahead of where they are now, and I think set a good foundation for moving forward. So pause there and see what questions you might have for me.
Questions?
You were talking about the residency of another county or where a person lives. How does that apply to the migrant workers that come into our county, which obviously they don't live here except for a very few weeks or a few months? How do those numbers get counted against Allegheny and not wherever they originate from?
Well, that's a good question. It's one we get asked a lot, and we do count if someone is living or residing in a community for a period of time and they test positive, that county gets the count. So that's following state guidance too. So in that case, if they're living here physically in Allegheny County, even if it's for a limited amount of time, it's counted in the Allegheny County numbers. And part of the reason for that is the recognition that when people live in a community, there is a risk, right? There's a risk that infection could spread to someone else in the community. So that's how we're treating all of tree workers across our district who are here on a migrant work situation. We also do the same for college students who are here over in Watauga County for a period of time. We count them in the Watauga count number.
Why aren't those people tested before they come to a farm or, to this community?
It's a great question. It's one that I think the state has been advocating for some time. And let me just say that even if they are tested, sometimes there's a need to test again. And, early in, one of the first cases that North Carolina experienced, there were migrant workers coming up in the spring and they rode the bus together. And so one was positive and everyone else on that bus became positive because of that. So it's not just entry into the state, but it's also travel that can expose people. So we are trying to work very closely with farms to make testing easy and accessible, even going to the farm site, so they don't have to come to the health department to do that for free of charge.
Have you had to take any legal action against any farms or any farms about not cooperating with the health department?
We always want, I guess I'll start and say we always want voluntary compliance. That's always my preference. It's, I believe, the right thing to do. But we have been in conversation with the Attorney General's office and our attorney when needed if we don't have accessible access to workers who we believe have been exposed. Now, if you have tested positive, it really doesn't benefit us to retest you because you're going to be, within 12 weeks, you're probably going to test positive again. So our interest is more about testing people who have been exposed. And when you have an outbreak, the goal is really to test more, not less. And the reason for that is if you don't, you continue to have more cases that get spread because people can be asymptomatic or they can be mildly symptomatic, and you can have more spread, and that can spill over into the community. So our goal is to always get voluntary compliance whenever we can. But I will tell you, we are actively making sure that if we have a farm that is not complying, that we have legal tools in public health that we can use. So it's obviously not my goal. It's not something I would like to do, but
It's something you're having to pursue right now for certain places?
it's something that I am pursuing to prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Larry? That's what you do. I think y'all have done a good job helping control this. We still have no deaths, is that correct?
We've had, I believe Allegheny has had 2 deaths, I believe.
When was that?
It's been some time ago. I'll confirm that, but we report that on our dashboard. And I'll tell you, the biggest concern I have related to deaths are risks with skilled nursing facilities. We have an outbreak, not in Allegheny County, thankfully, in one of our other counties, and we are continuing to see people die, and it's very concerning to me. So that's one of the areas where we're really trying to stay ahead of is places that we know that we have higher risk individuals and higher risk for spread. I would say the same is true when we have people living together, sharing a living environment. In any kind of case, it certainly adds to an increase of spread. But that's the age group we're most concerned about. So we've been very fortunate up to this point to not have the number of deaths and cases that a lot of places have, and that's what I hope we can continue to.
We hear, rumors of misclassifying the reason for the death. That's why I was concerned about it.
Well, it's a good question. I can tell you a couple of things related to that. If we have COVID-19 listed on a death certificate, we have to call the state and do some consultation to find out the details of the case to figure out whether it is attributable to COVID-19. Obviously, it's up to the medical examiner or the provider who is involved in that case that would sign that death certificate. But we are certainly trying to make sure that if there's anything that should be classified, that it gets counted. And the other thing to tell you is that North Carolina is one of the last states to report deaths electronically, which makes the data for deaths harder to gather because it's paper. But that's one of the things, along with many other things that are going electronic, that the state is working towards probably by next year, where death certificates will have to be done electronically, which will make more data available for the community.
Thanks. Whenever you have problems getting on to a property, can't you go to North Carolina Occupational Health, OSHA? They help you in that regard?
I will just tell you, I've had multiple conversations with the North Carolina Department of Labor in those situations, and they have been very helpful a couple of times. I think that what is hard about this whole situation is, our job is to protect people, and sometimes it's not convenient to do that. So I think the biggest part that's hard to understand is a test is a point in time. And so if you are negative, but we find out later that someone you've been close to is positive, it is so important that you get access to retesting, because if not, you could be spreading it to someone else unintentionally.
Did you have to take a special class in diplomacy?
Just lots of practice.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do want to, I did pull up real time the dashboard, and I know you have a big area to cover.
Yeah.
The deaths are still showing zero.
Zero, okay, sorry, I must have
One
confused
county
Ash.
over, I think.
Yes,
they do
I
have
did.
two, so I just wanted to help you research that
Thank
real
you.
quickly. So essentially, one of the questions Bobby had, if they reside here, they count here.
Yes.
That maybe one night or two, you might not catch them, but I mean, if they're basically here for. On the testing, we hear also things of false negatives, false positives. How is that showing up here? What's your experience?
Our experience is it's more likely to get a false negative. I have never seen a situation where we've had a false positive ever. We have had false negatives, and those are more likely to come from rapid tests. If someone doesn't have symptoms, or maybe they have just begun their symptoms, you can have a rapid test that tells you negative, and then really best practice is that you actually do a molecular test behind it, the send-off test, that takes a couple days to get results, and that's when we're finding actually this person is positive. So the rapid tests are very helpful, and I want to make sure you all don't mishear me. It's incredibly helpful, but if you can imagine, just like when you go to the doctor and you've got the flu and you've got all the symptoms and it looks like the flu and acts like the flu, sometimes it takes clinical judgment to make that call, but in those situations, it's doing that secondary test at the same time and sending it off is what we have been finding. It's, maybe you're negative with the rapid test, but you actually come back positive with the other one. And in the case of one of the nursing homes we're working with, that has been incredibly important because, as you all probably know, that's a tool that's been deployed to a lot of nursing facilities, but we have learned it's very important to do both tests because you can get a false negative if you just rely on the rapid tests. But I have not had any experience with a false positive.
The rapid test, how long does it take for the results?
It's about 15, 20 minutes.
Right, versus off to the lab.
We're working, I don't know where our machine is in transit, but we're working to try to have that available, particularly as schools become more active with children. It's going to be a key to have there, and it won't be the only answer, but it'll be another tool in the toolbox.
One final question is, antibody testing, if somebody wants that done, is that currently available in what process?
It's not as available as you might imagine. There are some providers that you can search out that are doing those. Those are blood tests. The problem with that is there's not a lot of public health science to tell you what does that mean. I mean, the only thing I can say is if you've been positive, what we've learned so far is the thought is you probably have about 12 weeks of immunity from that. But so far, there isn't a thought that you are, you have lots of immunity, but it's more like if you got the flu, and they're two different viruses, so I want to make sure people don't misunderstand that I'm trying to draw conclusions for what we know, but the flu is, if you get the flu once a year, you can still get it another year, and I guess, what they've pulled together so far tells us you have about 12 weeks of immunity once you're positive, and probably the other key is, one of the things we're still learning about, to your point about antibody tests, I think they will come into play more long-term as a healthcare tool because there are patients or cases where we've had someone who develops new symptoms or new issues that are longer-term, cardiac issues or other problems that they didn't have pre-COVID. And that's our concern. It's not about, I know some people get away with milder illness, and that's great, but there are people who have lasting effects, and that's what we're concerned about. And I hope that the antibody test, will continue to be studied in terms of how that can be helpful as a healthcare tool for providers.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You got any more information for us? Does that conclude?
I guess the last thing I'll say is prevention is really important. And, you know, there's been a lot of studies to support face coverings. And you saw I wear my mask in here. There was a new announcement that came out from CDC really supporting the fact that this could be an aerosolized virus, meaning it can go up in the air broader than what we originally believed. Of course, there's lots of study that needs to continue, but wearing the face covering and doing the social distancing with 6 feet or more and washing hands combined is what protects us the most. So I had to say it at least once when I was coming up here. So thank you all for having me and for your interest and the information that you shared with the community. Appreciate that very much.
Certainly appreciate what you folks are doing for the citizens of the county and other counties included. We appreciate it greatly. Next up be the chamber update, Ms. Lisa Bottomley.
Good morning. Been losing my voice some this morning, which my husband's grateful for, but hopefully I'll get through this presentation. Just want to update you on some Chamber of Commerce items. To let you know, our Visitor Center has reopened. It reopened last Monday, so we welcome Vicki Polier back to our chamber and to our Visitor Center, and she has jumped in, ready to get back to work and address all of our visitors that have come by over the past week. We had a busy week and a busy weekend, and Karen was there on Saturday, so we're glad to be reopened. To update you on some things that are going on, we are getting ready to launch a fun community event. It's like a scavenger hunt, which will be in collaboration with the opening of Streetscape. And this is going to include all Allegheny businesses, not just members and not just downtown merchants, but all Allegheny businesses. So look forward to that. We will be holding a ribbon cutting for the new Streetscape on October 2nd. This will be kind of a smaller version just because of all the guidelines that are still in place for the state of North Carolina related to COVID-19. This will include merchants and town and county representatives. We do plan to do a much larger celebration later in the year, granted that our state has reopened more at that point. Our main priority is to keep everyone safe, of course. We want to welcome 2 new members. We have Line 'em Up Barbershop, which is located in Trojan Village. Owner is Jerry Porcaro. And Next Level Detailing, which is located by Miles Realty, and that's Eduardo Panuco. We will be introducing a new initiative called the Community Cup, which is coffee with the chamber. This will be once a week. It's going to be a networking opportunity for businesses and just for citizens of Allegheny County. You can stop by once a week at the chamber, have a cup of coffee with us, share your ideas. Sorry, no lattes or fancy coffees. It'll just be good old black coffee with cream and sugar. But we welcome for people to stop by and see us and share your ideas and your thoughts. We want our community involved. We want to hear from you. This is not, we're not on an island. We need everyone's support moving forward. We are offering business after hours again. So right now our schedule is very light on that. So if you want to be, we want to invite businesses, if they want to have a business after hours event, please contact us at the chamber at 372-5473. Just want to remind everyone that the Mountain Heritage Festival, of course, has been canceled. We did offer our vendors, pardon me, an online option of posting their products, their crafts, their arts. We've had minimal response on that, but we do plan on, whoever does respond, posting that on our website, on our Facebook page, some different ways to help these vendors since everything has been canceled this year. So if you are a Mountain Heritage Festival vendor, if someone's listening, please contact us to get into that online event. We will be partnering with Allegheny Writers this week for a walkthrough book signing with author Bryn McLean from 4 to 5 p.m. Again, that's this Thursday. All COVID guidelines will be in place. Just an update on Cycle NC. Cycle NC has decided to cancel their event this year. They do plan on utilizing Allegheny County next year at the same time, so we'll keep you updated on that. This was their decision. They did try everything possible to have the event, but it just, with COVID-19, has not worked out for them. To talk about advertising, each one of you you should have 2 magazines in front of you. I just want to kind of show you an example of some things that we've been doing. If you'll look at the Blue Ridge Digest, this one, we have 2 places marked. In this particular publication, we do a colored ad, and we also do an article. So both of those are marked for you just to see what we've been up to. On page 23 is the article about Allegheny County. So I just those are yours to keep and to read and to look at, see what we're doing. And then the other one is Blue Ridge Country. That page is also marked for you. We chose to advertise there. It was a special that was running with the Blue Ridge Parkway Co-op. We're right in the center of the magazine. As you can see, it says visit the heart of the Blue Ridge Parkway, a great place to visit, an even better place to live, Allegheny County, North Carolina, and we use the Allegheny County seal, or the logo for that, and authentically AlleghenyCounty.com. So just wanted to let you know kind of what we're up to there. Blue Ridge Country actually is... They provide us feedback on how many people contact them through this ad in regards to Allegheny County. I just received a report from them, and this has only been out maybe a month and a half, and we've received close to 60 inquiries about Allegheny County based off of this ad in this publication. So I really like being able to advertise with someone where we get feedback, and we can report back at how much good it's doing. We are working on 2 marketing grants through the state of North Carolina to help advertise with Our State Magazine, and another initiative that's coming up. I have a meeting today with Our State Magazine. This would be free online marketing, some free ways to get the word out about Allegheny County and Our State Magazine or on their website. So I'll report on that next time. With Vicki being back, she has found a lot of different avenues to distribute our Allegheny County magazines. We'll be sending out 15 to 18 boxes of magazines just this week. We're also going to be delivering those to pumpkin lots, to tree lots, and to North Carolina Visitor Center. Also, she's contacted some other surrounding states to see if we can get some more in their visitor centers as well. Just to address, there has been some concern about the influx of visitors or vacationers to Allegheny County as people are seeing an increase in littering or disrespect of our natural resources. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that on Facebook or just in general conversation. There's a lot of people concerned about our rivers, about our parks, about unnecessary burning, and as they should be concerned. I do want to say that I have looked into the program called Leave No Trace. I do plan for the Chamber of Commerce to become members of this. I will be taking the training for this so that we can address not only tourists, not only visitors or second homeowners, but locals, natives, who also need to be reminded of how to take care of our natural resources around us. We want to invite people here, and we want people to love our county, and we want to be able, though, to address it before it happens, not after it happens. So with the Leave No Trace, which is also a partnership with the Blue Ridge Parkway Association or Foundation, hopefully we can co-brand some of that marketing and some of those messaging to get the word out about how, yes, come visit us, yes, live here, but please take care of where you are. Take care of our rivers, take care of our lands. So we will be moving forward with that because taking care of our natural resources is everyone's responsibility. I want to remind people to shop local. I can't express how important this is. We have some new businesses in town. Our existing businesses are trying very hard to carry supplies and things that people need here in Allegheny County. I know that we often hear, well, I just can't find it here in Allegheny. I can't find it here in Sparta. So if there are items that you want to see carried in our stores, go talk to our merchants. Come talk to the Chamber of Commerce. There's nothing wrong with bouncing around ideas and seeing what we can do for our locals. And the reason it is so important is that these are the same businesses that a lot of people go to help sponsor sports teams, to donate items for silent auctions or for nonprofits. So if we're not supporting them, then they will not be able to support our community in return. And that's not what they want. It's not what anyone wants. So we do encourage you to shop local. And I believe, just let you know that we are working very hard at the Chamber to help our local businesses market. We do this through several different avenues, through the Chamber of Commerce and through their membership. And as you know, moving forward, they will be investors. But what I do want to say, and I won't touch on it, but just for a moment because of time, but we are determined not to leave our current members behind. We will not leave them behind. We will be carrying them over and as founding members of our new organization. And when it is time for their membership or investorship to renew is when they'll have the option whether to stay where they are or to invest more into their community. So there's more to come on all of that, but I do want everyone to know that we are not leaving anyone behind and that we value our members now and moving forward. You have any questions?
Questions?
Dave, thank you.
Yes, it was very informative. We
Right.
appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, general business. Fairgrounds. Ms. Megan.
Morning.
Morning.
Main thing, I've given everyone a list of our original fees and then the proposed fee list. The Fairgrounds Board came together at a meeting a couple months ago and have talked about these fees, and the second page is the list that they have proposed that we charge. The main difference is originally it was on a scale of how many participants an event would have. So 1 to 100 participants was just $50, and if you went up to over 1,000, it was $500 plus 15%. And the issue was a lot of times we were not receiving that 15%. So the Fairgrounds Board has proposed that the grandstands is $500 a day with a maximum of $2,000 a week. So even if they need the grandstands for the entire week, $2,000 is the maximum. And they've done the same thing with the Black Building. They've tried to put a cap for a week as to how much that we would charge. We have also added deposits as well as fees for using the tractor and the sound system that were not there before. As well as the nonprofit fees are half of what a for-profit event would be, because previously we were trying not to charge for nonprofits, but just having a cleaning deposit, and they were getting that refunded, so we weren't receiving anything from any nonprofit organizations. So they have asked that we do have a charge for nonprofits to use the facilities.
I hear a motion to accept.
All right, I got a question,
Please.
Mr. Chairman. Whose pocket do these fees go into? Is it the county or is it the Fairgrounds Commission?
It's the county that receives these fees. Anybody that has an event through the county, that books an event through us, the fees come to the county.
The Fairgrounds Commission's going to have separate fees?
They don't have any fees. The only thing they used to receive is if they personally, if it was the Fairgrounds Board that held their own event, they used to do the chili cook-off and the fair, the gun raffle they did a couple times, and that's where they got their funds. If they actually sponsored an event, then they received the funds into their account for that, but they haven't done that in a couple years that I'm aware of.
Right. Bobby?
On the barn fees, $100 a day, $500 a week, what happens, you have a cleanup fee or deposit. What happens, who's responsible for getting rid of the sawdust? Who's responsible for putting new sawdust in? And where do they get rid of the sawdust?
The event holder is responsible for disposing of anything that if it's a mess, then they're responsible for cleaning it up. That's why we also added a custodial fee of $20 an hour. So if they leave it a wreck, then we keep their cleaning deposit, and also if they don't clean it up, we have to hire somebody to clean it up. They're going to get charged $20 an hour.
Where do they dispose of the sawdust?
That's up to them. I know Aaron Ray was kind of in charge of that, and he said that there's no other place to dump it except for behind the barn and just spread it out, and he says that that's not any harm. That was the conversation from the fairgrounds board, that they were going to keep just spreading it.
Spreading it in the same wet areas that they've been spreading it in.
Yes.
After we spent 2 days cleaning it up back in the winter, somebody's decided to go back and just dump it there again.
They've also talked about spreading it where they had the corn maze last year for the county fair, as long as it's taken and dumped and spread out, not just dumped and piled, because that was the issue. The last time it was just pile upon pile upon pile, and it did take us 2 days because it was a mound that was probably several years worth of loads that had been dumped in one area.
And you don't think that runoff goes into the creek?
Well, I think that it does.
So who's going to get rid of the pile that they've put up there now?
They were going to spread it out over that corn maze and use it as fertilizer for fair, hopefully next year. They plan to keep having the corn maze up on that bank up to the Scout House for years to follow.
That'll be taken care of fairly soon.
Yes.
Yeah, I see that manure out of that barn is just like a dairy. You got to have a place to store it for a short period of time. Pack it and then haul it and put it somewhere. And to put it up on the cornfield up the mountain for the corn maze is very appropriate place to spread it out and put it. It's just a fact of getting it in a timely manner and getting it up there.
Yes.
It keeps the fairground or the fire committee from having to buy fertilizer to put on the cornfield up there to make the maze out of.
I think that was, again, the main issue in the past, is that events hadn't really been told what to do with it. They were either leaving it and then we were responsible and somebody was having to just dump it. But they will be informed now when they use the barn. They have access to the tractor. You are to take it and not only just dump it, but as also spread it out.
Any other questions?
Now I make a motion we approve the fees.
A motion, here a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0.
Then that follows into the next thing that I have for you all. Last year, the SRC did trunk and treat at the fairgrounds because of the weather. It was kind of a last-minute decision, but it turned out to be a wonderful event, and several children in the community came. And this year with COVID-19, we are worried about our children not having a place to be able to go. They're not going to be able to go house to house, we're afraid. So the SRC has proposed a drive-through trunk and treat. So Bob Lane is going to be directing traffic, and the vendors are just going to be set up around the outside of the grandstands, kind of let people drive through and do a loop. And Bob is going to be directing traffic coming in through Bledsoe Creek and going out the main entrance, so that we let our children still have somewhat fun, but they won't be getting out of the vehicles. They'll just be driving from each booth. And the SRC has proposed, I come to you all and ask that the fees be waived for that event, since we do have fees now for a nonprofit. They asked last year if they could use the barn, but now it's just going to be a drive-through event. They won't be using the restrooms or anything like that for that event.
They have their insurance.
Yes. Yes.
All the health precautions will be taken.
Yes. I spoke with Karen Lees last week on Thursday, and she said all of the people doing the trunk will have to wear a mask, and then the children's will not come out of their parents' vehicles. It'll just be a drive-through event.
It'll be a good event.
Everything will be appropriately spaced between each vendor.
Any questions?
Yes. What would the fees be if we don't waive them?
If we don't waive them, then it would be $100.
Now we're going to be asked to be Moses, aren't we?
Well,
Whenever we have a fire department come up, now that we're charging nonprofit fees, we have a volunteer fire department, whenever COVID-19's over, they come up and they ask us to waive the fees.
they're getting money from the event is the difference in the issue. Like last year, we had told them that they could use the facility and these fees weren't in place at that time. So they were just asking that this year we waive the fees because we had told them they could use it and there weren't any fees at that time except for a cleaning deposit for nonprofits. And the fire departments are getting all of the money, all the proceeds from gate money that they're taking, whereas this is a free event.
Maybe last year, but now you just said nonprofits going to be paying in the future.
Yes, but it's free to the community.
They'd be using restrooms and all the other facilities, right?
Yes, normally, but this year, they won't be using any of the facilities. Nobody's to get out of their vehicle. It's just a drive-through event. It's just the only place that they felt was appropriate enough to space everybody out adequately and keep all of the precautions in place for both the vendors and the kids.
Any other questions? Motion?
I would make that motion to waive that with an emphasis on this is COVID-19 issue. Forward, we probably would, whoever the board is, would whatever they want to at that time. But on that note, and for that.
Bobby's got a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? 4-1.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Sir.
Just to be clear, so the initial motion to approve the fee structure, as I heard that was a recommendation from the Fairgrounds Committee, correct?
Yes, the new fees are what the Fairgrounds Committee came up with to bring to the board for approval.
So that works in my mind, so that is an advisory board recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Second, and also related to that, although if the county is the one receiving revenues, there remains a possibility of, if something happens court-related, that the black building may be thought of as a temporary court facility. So, not knowing entirely if that's a reality or not, I just want to point out that there may have to be some careful monitoring, most likely after the first of the calendar year, to ensure that if we have events scheduled, that they do not overlap or coincide with any potential court proceedings that may have to occur at that site.
That's more procedural, isn't it?
It is, but I just want us to keep in line with that, because we have determined that facility to be a temporary court facility if needed.
I have a question then, Mr. Chairman.
One on the right here first, Mark.
These would be effective immediately, is that
Sir.
So who's doing all the scheduling at Fairgrounds Commission now? You are. Making the decisions, you don't have to go to anyone else for approval?
Well, not necessarily. If it's a time frame within the committee, then I have to present it to the Fairgrounds Board if we have a meeting before the event. But
Now the question comes up, the county chairman just said that you consider this as an advisory board.
I made the comment that I consider that to be an advisory board's recommendation.
But you're assuming that they are an advisory board.
This instance, yes.
They're having to approve events. They're no longer an advisory board, they're an operational board.
I don't disagree with that.
And the reason why I bring this up, we are placing the board members in jeopardy. If there is an injury or a death during one of these events, and a suit arises, and I'll look for legal counsel on this. If this event happens, and I'm going to go back to whenever Chrysler pulled out of NASCAR in the 70s, Richard Petty went drag racing, broke an axle, and killed a couple whenever the car went into the stands. They sued the drag strip, they sued Richard Petty individually and Richard Petty Enterprises. If something like that happens at the fairgrounds, it's an operational committee making executive decisions. Members of that board are subject to suit because they're going to sue everyone. They're going to sue the fairgrounds committee. They're going to sue the board. They're going to sue the county. Even though they've got insurance, they're going after the insurance company. Am I not correct, ma'am? They have assets.
We're in the process of unraveling the duties and obligations between the county and the Fairgrounds Incorporated. I was just handed the bylaws this morning and started reading them during the opening, which was why I wasn't paying attention. So if we could defer my answers to any of those questions until I can finish reading these two documents, I greatly appreciate it.
I will say that we have been in the process of kind of tweaking the bylaws. It's been a process, but the fairgrounds, at the last fairgrounds meeting, which was Tuesday last week, they asked that we actually sit down and have a discussion with a couple of the members of the fairgrounds board, Mr. Carter, and a couple of the commissioners, so that we could kind of hash out what is this board exactly, find out who's responsible for what, and actually have just a work session to determine some of these things that we have questions for, so that is in the works. And I know Donna only has a short time left with us, so the new attorney will be involved as well. Before any bylaws are set in stone, they did want our attorney to have a look at them so that the Fairgrounds Board is both covered and commissioners are aware.
The only thing I'll ask in that regard, is my concerns valid, ma'am?
have
Could there be possible jeopardy there?
In theory, without me knowing more, I mean, I guess I could say anybody can be sued for any reason, for any, whether or not they'll prevail, I cannot tell you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I just don't know enough about the structure. I know some dealings with the fairgrounds that we had back in like 2008 and how it was structured at that point, and I know what it was intended to be at that point, but I don't know about the evolution since then because there's not been reports back to this board. So what the Fairgrounds Committee itself has done since then, I have no idea. That was 12 years ago, so there's a lot of history I need to catch up on that just has not been a priority for this board in the last 12 years.
I guess for Donna, as far as I know, there's the original bylaws that were done quite a few years back. And I think those are easy to identify by, they had 150 members on the board of directors or in the bylaws. So that's one set of documents, and I guess that's the original.
Yes, and I think Mr. Carter gave her both the original and the proposed.
And the two new proposed. One was highlighted in red, which was about,
Yes.
and then there was one that came out of Tuesday's meeting, which I guess would be the third
Draft.
possible set of bylaws. So I think you've got three.
I have two,
There's
and all of
two.
them are in black and white.
So there's one more someplace.
So the third one was probably, or the middle is probably the one you don't have, which is just
If it was a draft and you're beyond that, it's not relevant anyway.
Okay.
The draft with the red lines in it, to my understanding, has been incorporated into this final agreement, which Donna has a copy of. She has the original, I have the original. This is the incorporation of the however many drafts in between.
And there one more.
Well, the one in red was just we brought to the board and kind of highlighted in red so that the board could discuss the changes and vote on whether they agreed with those changes or whether they wanted to change them further for the final copy that she has. So that middle was just what the Fairgrounds Board used as discussion so that the changes were identified.
And I think for the minutes, the minutes ought to read at some point that Mr. Carter referred to the Fairgrounds people as an advisory board, and Megan also referred to those same people as an advisory board. I think those should be noted in the minutes.
I will say also, we did have the discussion at the meeting on Tuesday, and that was the consensus of the Fairgrounds Board as well. They said, and we're all in agreement, they're an advisory board. They are not there to govern decisions, just.
That should be in the minutes also.
Okay.
Speaking of that in the minutes, that's not part of the agenda. I think it's not. I think it's good discussion, but I don't see it as part of the agenda. So I don't know why it would need to go in the minutes.
Regardless of what you say, whether it's in the minutes, whether it's not in the minutes, it doesn't make a bit of difference. It either is or it isn't, and we need to determine that through more documents than just what I have in front of me. So we do need to, this is not on the agenda to make that determination today. It was on to discuss waiver of trunk or treat fees.
Fees were to be discussed and waive the trunk or treat
We'll vote it on.
fees.
I think we could all agree it would be a good agenda item for next meeting to revisit.
Correct.
Direction to the manager and.
Get on the agenda for next meeting.
We want to try and schedule the work session between.
I'd be in favor of that.
I'd recommend that you put it on the agenda when the county manager determines that you're ready to proceed, depending on how long it takes to do this research and get the information that you need. I don't think it's going to languish. I think you'll put it on when it's ready, but if we're not ready, you're going to have a more productive meeting than what you just had.
Your ducks in a row. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for Donna or whoever, I've got one set of proposals dated September the 15th. I've got one that's highlighted in red, no date on it. I have another one with no date that's different than all two others. At some point, I've gotten three different possibilities.
I'm actually more interested in the minutes of the Fairgrounds, Inc. since about 2008 forward.
That would be interesting to read.
The next few days.
Okay. Moving on down to item 3, resolution declaring Ames van surplus property.
Tiffany's moving up the chairs.
She's coming one at a time.
She's getting there.
Morning.
I'm here today to request that 2 Allegheny and Motion vans be declared as surplus. They have been replaced in our fleet, and I would also like to request the minivan or the Dodge Caravan be transferred to the Allegheny Council on Aging to help with the transportation of the delivery for the meals,
You want to declare that surplus, a resolution to do so.
Move.
The motion is second.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Raise your right hand. 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That didn't hurt.
We going to,
Also have a letter request for one of those vehicles.
So we need another motion to declare.
Need to consider the request for donation. And I will tell you that I had a conversation, Miss Karen Edwards is the one that's requested. And I identified to her that I have seen that done in other government operations. However, once that vehicle is declared surplus, it comes off of the county's there's no more liability. There's no maintenance, there's no tags, all fees associated with that vehicle after it's towards that agency, the county no longer has responsibility for. And that's what she has identified in her letter dated September 16, 2020, is that request minus those expenditures.
I do have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
In the letter from Ms. Edwards, she identifies that one of these needs an axle replaced. Is that the Caravan that needs an axle replaced?
It is.
If we transfer a vehicle that has a known defect and later on it's the cause of an accident, are we going to be liable?
Transfer it as is.
As is, and if you sold it publicly, it'd be the same way, in my opinion.
All right?
As
Sure,
is.
it's stipulated as is.
Yes.
The motion we approve and as is to be transferred to the center.
Donation. A motion to hear a second.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is a bypass traffic discussion. $18 in the bypass back here. What's this?
Information until the other police.
Mr. Chairman, what is proposed? A resolution from us that a stoplight be placed at the location, sir?
Is that the resolution that we're on? Where's the town standing on this? I mean, I've heard from stop sticks to roundabouts to four-way stops and stoplights. So
I haven't spoken. I know that they, but I don't know.
stoplight would be by far the best.
I believe a resolution for a stoplight would be the best also. I mean, you look at the stack of accident reports there, it's evident that something's got to be done. Commissioner Prince pointed out if they put rumble strips in, now we've got a problem whenever it snows. We'll be able to drag that road. Something's got to be done for how many people's been killed there.
To my knowledge, I believe that's right.
What's a life worth?
Time to do something.
I think a light or a roundabout has been the two best possible. Actually, the best. Whichever is the very best is what I'm in favor of.
I don't understand how a four-way stop's going to work myself, unless you restructure the turning lanes or whatever. But
that people can't navigate a two-way stop right now, but for the county's responsibility is we could ask DOT to do something. The way I understand it, it's up to DOT to make that final decision. I don't know if a resolution would help that the board recognizes this, it's a dangerous intersection. I don't know with Main Street finally being opened, if that'll relieve some of the traffic. That's why you need an expert to come up with the best, safest solution.
Received an email saying it was question to always stop, and if it was something that they would need a
Always stop being a traffic light or just a sign?
always stop.
I would not vote. It either needs to be a traffic light or a roundabout.
If they mean a
Since I go
four-way
through
stop.
there several times a day, I prefer the roundabout.
And I did notice today that I assume the noise, the big orange and white rectangular signs are gone now that should help. Has, and keeps you, has helped.
Bobby said people get there today with a two-way, they don't know whether to turn, whether they got right of way or not, and it's a traffic hazard.
Mr. Carter.
My suggestion on this is it's obviously a demonstrated need. There have been several accidents that have occurred as a result. Not to discount a resolution, but I would encourage us to have one of the DOT people at your next meeting so they can fully understand the concerns about the intersection, that they can discuss what they have provided in writing, maybe take some of the additional comments and incorporate that, and then we consider some type of resolution after you have more information. These are a lot of fact sheets that people do, and they're great, but I think if you have someone standing there that actually hears more about it and can present it in a different way, I would suggest you do that.
If I could add one thing too, normally each year you're asked to do priorities for DOT for the county. When it comes time to do that again, make sure you designate that as one of your priorities. I know it's been designated before, but you have more data now to support the reason why you want it.
And also, this, to continue on that, the town and county every so often has joint meetings. And this may be an ideal candidate for a joint meeting so that the town and county both receive the same information, the same presentation, and then they can, both bodies can pursue it equally as a thought.
That's a good suggestion myself for the joint meeting.
There are 5 Mondays in November.
On the board about the next joint meeting, wait till November or speed it up a little.
Well, my fear is, Mr. Chairman, if we wait until November, we've got 2 more deaths on our hands.
We've got a little momentum going right now, I think, Ted, and
Well, I don't want it on my conscience. I got enough on it as it is. I'd prefer a joint meeting quickly as possible with DOT to brief us.
I agree with Commissioner.
that be a good meeting to have the DOT, or do we need to, just the town and us, have our conversation, then have the DOT?
I think you have personally, I think you have DOT at the meeting and provide information, and then you can thank that individual and you can continue your meeting based off what you heard.
One meeting.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Okay, let's get a date worked up. I'll be saying the 5th of October, Monday. First Monday.
That's our next meeting.
That's our next. We can't do the joint meeting. We gotta have a separate meeting for the. We do all that?
We can invite the
Yeah, right. Our
Town
joint,
council.
we need to do the joint meeting to see where everybody's on the same page before that.
I believe that would save time, Mr. Chairman. Then the town council and the county commissioners can ask the questions, get the same answer from DOT, and then can make our discussion recommendations.
From what I've heard, it sounds like there are shared questions.
Yep.
There are shared concerns. In order to expedite it, you get your DOT person in front of that joint meeting, and there's that opportunity for both bodies to.
Put up in.
joint
And there's not a lot of time for DOT in the town between now and the 5th, but they should be able to.
2 weeks.
I've been talking to them for 3 years, Bobby, so I don't know how much more time they need.
Put on a regular meeting then. That suits the board.
Suits me.
Fine with me.
Me, Mr. Chairman, I would like to add a couple we have discussed this and tried to get help for a long time. And on the DOT plan and radar and from us, it always falls to funding and prioritization. And on that note, John Torbett, representative of the House, who is a senior chairman on the Transportation Committee, as of 2 weeks, aware of this. And he votes and back to, actually, West had the conversation. I was having I had cornered somebody else on another area. So there's been hopefully some contact, face-to-face contact and a discussion with someone potentially would help on the funding side. I know our local DOT, I think, are on board with us, but if they don't get funding, happens every.
I think I agree with that local board, the local group, they are on board with it.
And I think that the leverage and the energy of both boards meeting with our local people would certainly help them then to go back into the transportation group and hopefully find some funding to address this, what I think has to score really high, but for our population and all, it just doesn't seem fortunate.
Well taken. Got anything else? So we will have a joint meeting on October the 5th. DC contract. Open for discussion.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
In a recent county commissioner meeting, Mr. Cavaney was here. I asked him some questions, one of which was, what is the average rental cost per square foot in Allegheny County, and a couple other questions. The reason why I did that, if you will look on page 26, operator manager being responsible for economic development activities and serving as director of Allegheny County Economic Development Corporation located in Allegheny, North Carolina. Now, that is a contractual obligation. Now, during that discussion, we found out that the manager of the facility is only working 12 hours. So, and he, whenever I questioned him, if he was doing the economic development, he stated that he wasn't. At that time, if memory serves me correct, I said that we need to either cancel the contract or that we need to at least rewrite the contract, taking that out of it because they're in violation of the contract. Now, later on during the discussion that the county manager and I had, we found out that there's other things that were more involved, and as I was looking and remembering back, whenever we've started talking about the condition of the roof in the Business Development Center, and we had 46 leaks in it. No one from the Blue Ridge Development Center that is under contract to operate that facility had ever come to the county commissioners to tell us that they had a problem. We were relying basically on a county employee that was working over there to tell us that we had the problems that were there. And later we find out that we've got companies that have been renting a business space over there for at least 6 years, possibly longer, that's still paying the same $150. Recently I found out that in 2012, the corporation had purchased 2 lots, and these are the lots that the farmers market sit on, paying $86,000. Now, the $86,000 had to come from somewhere. I don't know where it came from, but I am assuming, and we all know what assume does, that money came from the rentals that had been collected in the BDC. That corporation has given the 2 lots to the town of Sparta for $0. If you will look at the next item that we have on our agenda, we're going to be looking at a hookup to bring in environmental controls into the server room. But as the contract states, county's external. This is an internal modification to the building. I'll discuss the bid that we have in front of us whenever we get to this, but as far as the contract, as far as I feel that the contract has been violated, and it has come to the time where the county needs to assume control of that building. And the Blue Ridge Development Center, the corporation, the 501c3, can go on its merry way. All I have, Mr. Chairman.
Everything else? Any discussion?
On one note there, I would say that, our maintenance department was fully involved with the roof. As far as information goes, I mean, we and our previous county manager aware of things and changing the roof and the
On the farmer's market, did they not get some grant money on the purchase of that properties over there?
I know there was grant funds obtained to create the farmer's market. I'm not sure that went for the purchase of the real property.
Mr. Chairman, now, the
Yes, sir.
county manager and I received a email from the manager of the Blue Ridge Development Center and stated that they were transferring the property to the town of Sparta to enable them to get Partum grants, if memory serves me correct. And I really don't want to dig into this stack over here because it's towards the bottom. I'll defer to the county manager as to the accuracy of my recollection.
And I think that also the Streetscape planning more.
Well, the property was transferred 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. If they haven't filed it yet, I can't get a copy of the deed as of Monday of last week.
And I would agree that the recent grant that they're pursuing is a Partif grant, I think, to the bathrooms and that nature.
And they needed to.
I think there was a grant on the front end of this to some degree, but I could be wrong.
I think there was too. I can't remember exactly, but I believe they got some grant money.
Are we talking about the Whitehead property?
Yes.
Okay. Let me read you a section of their minutes that I've received. It says, Dale advised the BDC is working on finalizing the transfer of the Whitehead property to the town of Sparta. That's the properties we're talking about, correct? Brian provided information on the history of these 2 properties and how the BDC was involved in the transaction. The town purchased the properties for $30,000 and $56,000. The homes on these properties were used as a training exercise and were removed. And I'm just learning this. You guys probably know this stuff. He advised that they had obtained a Parks and Rec grant of $50,000 to make improvements. He advised there is a committee working on the improvements and such items such as a playground and equipment have been ordered. The deed was signed and notarized at the conclusion of the meeting.
The property, the deeds that I have, and I've got a copy here, properties, one of which was from now Skyland Bank, was purchased for $30,000. Your Honor also saw those deeds. The other property was $56,000, and they were deeded to the Business Development Center. Now, if the town of Sparta purchased them for $86,000, why was the title in the BDC's name, a corporation?
Reading from the minutes.
That is, in fact, the way that it went. I wish the town of Sparta would buy my property. I'll sell it to them. And they can transfer it to my name.
The 30,000 or the 50,000?
Well, I'd like $250,000 what I've got in it, but. But basically, you know, do we want to renew the contract? Do we want to rewrite the contract? Are we going to hold them to the contract? Which means that they've got to start recruiting for some businesses in Allegheny County.
I think your point is correct as far as the development. That has responsibility is being taken over now by the group. That ought to come off. Other stuff in there, I'm not. Recommendation would be to strike that from the contract. Trying to get some clarification on who owns what, who bought what, and how it got done.
According to the email that the county manager and I've got, they've already transferred the property to town of Sparta. And they're a corporation, they can do anything they want. I mean, that's out of it, but.
Thing, I attended one of their board meetings last week. One thing that I pointed out, just in my 9 months of being here, is I'm not sure that there's been a good line of communication between that group and the Board of Commissioners. We've demonstrated that by some of the comments here today. One of the items on their agenda is actually talking about core functions and mission. Encourage them to look into. That's the last item on their agenda, but I encourage them to look at that because I think that needs defined.
What I would like to see is for them and the new marketing group figure out who's doing what of some of the stated things in the work with their items that you just called out and improve the communication with this board, and at such time that everybody's on the same page, then the contract to fit exactly where it needs to, both sides are okay with. I think at this point it's probably, I feel like it's premature to make one line change here and there and to really suit what actually is happening. Questions probably right now than we do answers. That's my.
The only other thing that I'll point out is apparently when this was set up, the common reference, as I was told, was a business incubator type setting. And I know that they are now trying to move beyond business incubator and more towards what they're calling, I believe, a co-working space. That is one of the functions that they're trying to work through, because I think of some of the questions or comments that have come up about the lease rates and the years that the individuals have spent there and all of that. So I think that there are some additional things that they need to do and this board needs to do as a result of what they are doing. I don't know that we're there at this moment.
I think I'm probably the only person left in the room that was around when the BDC was actually formed. And I think that part of our problem and part of your struggle is that the information about the why things happen the way they did is not preserved very well. Our records retention policy is about 6 years, and for entities that exist longer than that, you don't have the history you can go back and pull to find out why. But it is true that when the BDC was originally formed, the idea was to be an incubator for new business, so that if somebody had an idea, they could work with, at that point, Clark Hunter, who was the director of the BDC, to develop a business plan and to have office space where they could operate for around a year, a little bit, maybe a year and a half, to see if they could get the business off the ground and then vacate that space and go on somewhere else, and allow another business to come in for the incubation stage. And I think in the turnover in personnel with county manager and at the BDC, that I think some of that vision and purpose has been lost, and it's been transformed into other things as needs have arisen. This contract that was done in 2018 was a revision of the original, and I'm not sure if any of us even have a copy of the original at this point because it exceeds the 6-year retention policy. So the authority of this board, though, is you own the property and you're contracting with the BDC, which is a corporation. And so you also have some control over the funding. But as far as the inner workings of the BDC, it's a separate corporation with a separate board of directors, and you can't dictate what they do, except for the funding that you provide for the BDC and the rental of the office space. So within the confines of that, you can negotiate a new contract, but as far as defining exactly what the BDC does, I think that may be a little bit beyond your control at this point.
Well, it's not our control anyway, and it's ill-defined because the bylaws are for the Blue Ridge Telecenter, which was the original purpose for the purchasing of the building and the modification. That's why that military-grade fiber optic is up there. We've never rewritten the bylaws. It's not defined in there. Now, it's my understanding, and I'm trying to search back, and I don't want to dig out the bylaws that I've got right now, but I believe the reason the town manager and the county manager were on there was so that they could be part of the management committee of the corporation.
At least the liaison.
Or a liaison, that's why they are on the board of the directors. Now, which brings another question up. Meeting at your siting, was it in September?
September 17th.
I was Brian Edwards there because he was no longer the town manager, therefore he should have been replaced by the new town manager.
Was, but it is my understanding that the chamber also holds a position on that board. And with his new position, brought in as that individual.
And then also, as a matter of information for this board, when Clark Hunter had that position, he reported to the board at least quarterly as to the activities, how many different people he had written business plans for and resumes, the number of units leased. I have an informational report for this board quarterly.
And if we're not going to assume the operation of the Business Development Center, the building, we are going to rewrite the contract, Mr. Chairman. I would suggest that we place in the contract that they would provide a bi-yearly report on exactly those items. They're not in there right now.
I agree with that. I'd think a quarterly report, like you mentioned, would be very, very good. Mark?
I also think for the possibility, if the board is in favor of it, I know county manager is a designee or a liaison on that board. It might not, but it's challenging. I mean, the amount of time you have available to go to that, if maybe you could appoint somebody,
I would
or
be happy for someone else.
one of the
to take
board
that.
members could do it. I'm sorry?
I would be happy with someone else taking that.
Well, I mean, I wasn't thinking of somebody else taking over that, but maybe somebody else as well, so that between the two people, hopefully someone could attend, and the communication, that might help the communication. I would even volunteer as a board member if that's of any interest. If not, that's fine too.
We want to table this discussion?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I believe we need to make a decision on whether we want to cancel the contract, county assume operation of Business Development Center, or rewrite the contract. That'll tell us which way we want to go.
I think Bobby's got a question right quick.
Mark had a while ago mentioned the new group that's forming with the Development Center, the Chamber Marketing Group, whatever they're called. Is that something that group might want to be involved with this group at the BDC, or is that going beyond what they're looking to do? To me, it sounds like they're going down the parallel tracks. I don't know if we want to talk to them about that, or
They have representation on the board.
I don't know.
They do.
That's where I think them discussing through for futures for both entities to make sure that they're, and I think that's what their intentions are, but it's just I don't think that they're ready yet to know exactly what contract they want to propose to us, or vice versa.
Okay.
I have no problem with Mark serving. Wants to.
And
John.
He's there.
That's up to them, their board too, I mean.
John's wanting to make a decision.
All right, well, I'll make a motion that we cancel the contract with the Blue Ridge Development Center and assume control, the county assume control.
We've got a motion. Do I hear a second? No second. Motion fails.
Make a motion that we rewrite the contract with the BTC to include the things mentioned in the discussion.
Got a motion to rewrite the contract. Things we just mentioned in discussion.
Clarification on that.
Moving the economic development. And the sharing of the BDC van, because it don't exist. Support and promotion of economic development. Business activity within Allegheny County be removed. And operator, manager be responsible for economic development activities, serving as director of Allegheny County Economic Development Coordination located in Allegheny County be removed also.
Look at that.
Further discussion? A motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed?
Chairman, I make a motion to table this for 6 months or until we hear back from.
I think tabling would be a fine thing. Some further insight. Know a little more about it.
We need 6 months, Donna, or can it be
Or
done?
sooner if they're ready. I would state it that way.
Okay. I'll second that.
So you're we're not tabling, we're delaying action for 6 months. Delaying action, because we can't table, we just passed it.
That's anything. Table it for 6 months.
Table it for 6 months. About it properly quicker, we can take it up.
Yeah.
Or
sooner if necessary.
All Drew's typing right there. We're coming up 20 minutes to 12, and we got a long ways to go. So let's take a dinner break. Bathroom break, dinner break for hours, enough?
Suits me.
Wait a minute.
You want to take a vote on that before we leave?
We might want to.
I do.
Might forget it.
I do. I just think that in there.
I'll second.
Okay.
Well, we have a motion to table.
Motion table. 6 months.
Got a second?
Not 6 months,
That's what we said.
until
Till additional information's how
information
Okay.
is available.
That ain't how I made the motion.
Now, what are we tabling?
The motion was 6 months.
Motion was 6 months or sooner if they come to us with additional information.
Right.
That's where I would rather.
Counseling number 11? Counseling number
10 or 11?
Who are we tabling?
Tabling, redoing anything with the contract.
Motion number 10 has already failed, so you're on motion number 11.
Motion that. Mark motion, Bobby's seconding. More discussion. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed?
Sure what we voting on.
I'm not either. I had
We
a
are.
senior moment.
We
there.
are.
4-1, but I'm not sure.
Motion was
6
to
months.
table the discussion on the BDC contract for 6 months or sooner if information is available sooner.
That's what we voted on.
Which was
That's
number
what we
10.
voted on.
It's number 10.
It's number
Which is
11.
number,
Okay.
10 and 11.
And you've already done.
Rewrite the contract.
Well,
as
actually, at
10.
this point, 11's already done too.
what was the vote? Was it 4-1 or
It
5-0?
was 4-0.
It's 5-0.
Board,
I
I'm
voted
confused.
I think under our,
That's if no
under our
vote,
rules of
that's
procedure, if you
that's in
don't
the
vote, it's a
affirmative.
yes, it's
The vote
affirmative
is in
vote.
the affirmative.
5-0.
Go ahead, we're done.
It's
Be back
5-0.
in an hour, Bobby.
All right,
20.
Recess till
12:40.
12:45. Make it easy to remember.